Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to be looking at solving linear equations with fractions. When solving equations with fractions, you can multiply the equation by a number that will cancel out the denominators. And the reason you want to do that is if I have an equation with a fraction, right? If I can multiply the equation by some number to cancel out the denominators, that will make the equation much simpler and easier to solve. So again, when you're solving an equation with a fraction, you want to try to multiply the equation by a number to cancel out the denominators. Let's see this in action. So here, I want to solve these equations. Starting with, negative 3 is equal to x divided by 6. Here, I'm dividing my x value by 6. And now remember, to solve linear equations like this, we can use opposite operations. Now here, since I'm dividing by 6, the opposite of dividing by 6 is multiplying by 6. So what I can do to solve this equation is I can multiply by 6. And now remember, if I multiply one side of the equation by 6, I have to multiply the other side by 6 as well. So now, on the left-hand side, I just have 6 times negative 3. 6 times negative 3 is negative 18. And on my right-hand side, I have a 6 divided by 6. 6 divided by 6 is just 1, so those cancel out. And I'm just left with x is equal to negative 18. Next example, 8 divided by 3 is equal to 8 divided by 12. There's several different ways we can solve this equation, but one of the ways we can solve it is by seeing if we notice any patterns here between this fraction on the left and this fraction on the right. Now notice, I have a 3 here in the denominator here, and I have a 12 here in the denominator here. Well, I can multiply this number, the 3, by 4 to get 12. So then what does that mean? That means I can divide, right? I can divide this number by 4 to get a. Right? Because all I'm doing here to go from this fraction to this fraction is I'm just multiplying both the top and bottom by 4. So to figure out what this missing value a is, I can just go in reverse, right? I can divide by 4 to figure out what a is. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So there's my answer. Part C. 3 over 5 is equal to x divided by 4. Well, for this one, there isn't really a clear relationship between the two fractions, right? Right, if I look at my denominators, 4 and 5, right? There isn't an easy number I can multiply the 4 by to get 5, right? Right? There isn't really a clear relationship between these two fractions here. But we can still use the idea we kind of talked about before with the opposite operations to solve this. Right? Even though there isn't really like a clear relationship with the numbers, right? We can still use that idea, right? Opposite operations to help us solve this equation, that we talked about in part A, right? Because here, we're just dividing x by 4. The opposite of dividing by 4 is multiplying by 4. So what I can do here is I can multiply my equation by 4. And if I multiply this side by 4, I have to multiply the other side by 4 as well. And now, on the left-hand side, I have 4 times 3 over 5. Okay. To multiply these together, now remember, 4 is the same thing as 4 over 1. And now, we know how to multiply this, right? We just multiply the numerators and the denominators together. In the numerator, 4 times 3 is just 12. And in the denominator, 1 times 5 is just 5. And on the right-hand side, these 4's cancel out to give me just x by itself. So I can see x is equal to 12 divided by 5. So again, the main idea with these types of problems, right, solving equations by fractions, is you want to think about what number, right? What kind of number could you multiply the equation by to cancel out the denominators? Part D. X divided by 2 minus 6 is equal to 10. Again, let's try using opposite operations to help us solve this equation. Now, you'll notice I'm subtracting by 6 here. To solve this, we can use opposite operations to help us find x. And the opposite of subtracting by 6 is adding 6. So what I can do here is I can add 6 to both sides. Okay, on this side, the 6 minus 6 will cancel out, and I'm just left with x over 2. And on this side, 10 plus 6 is 16. Now, we have x divided by 2 is equal to 16. The opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2. So if I multiply both sides by 2, I get x is equal to 32, which is my answer. Okay, let's look at a couple more examples here. Y divided by 6 is equal to y divided by 2 plus 4. Now again, remember, the idea for these types of problems is you need to think about what can I multiply my equation by to cancel out the denominators. Okay. Well, here, my denominators are 2 and 6. So, when we're trying to think of a number we can multiply by to cancel out the denominators, think about, what do my two numbers, my denominators, my 2 and 6, what number do both of these go into? Well, both 2 and 6 go into 6, right? Because 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 times 1 is 6. So both of my numbers in the denominator, 2 and 6, both go into 6. So what can I do? I can multiply both sides of my equation by 6, because both of my denominators, right, the 2 and the 6, both go into 6. So let's do that. Let's multiply both sides of my equation here by 6 and see what happens. Now, when I'm multiplying by 6, really what I'm doing is I'm multiplying each of the terms here, right? I'm multiplying everything here by 6, right? So I'm multiplying this by 6. I'm multiplying this by 6. I'm multiplying this by 6. And I know this looks complicated, but it's not as complicated as it looks. Because here I have 6 divided by 6, right? 6 divided by 6, those cancel out. And I'm just left with y on the left-hand side here. Here I have 6 divided by 2. 6 divided by 2 is just 3. So here I just have 3 times y, or 3y. And then here I have 4 times 6. 4 times 6 is 24. And now all we have to do to get y is solve this equation. And again, there's several different ways I could solve this equation. One way I could do that is by subtracting 3y from both sides. Right? Because if I subtract 3y from both sides, these 3y's cancel out. On the left-hand side, I have 1y minus 3y. 1 minus 3 is just negative 2. So I have negative 2y is equal to 24. And now to solve this, all I need to do is just divide this by 2. Negative 2. To get y is equal to negative 12. So again, I'm going to repeat this. When you're solving equations with fractions, you want to think about what number can you multiply your equation by to cancel out the denominators, like I did here. Last example. 2m over 3 minus 2 is equal to m divided by 4 plus 1. Here, my denominators are 3 and 4. So again, we need to think about what number do both 3 and 4 go into? Well, 3 and 4 both go into 12, right? Because 3 times 4 is 12, and 4 times 3 is 12, right? So since both of these denominators, the 3 and the 4, both go into 12, what I can do is I can multiply both sides of my equation here by 12. So I'm going to do that. Right? I'm just going to multiply both sides of my equation by 12. And so what that means is I'm going to need to multiply every single term inside my equation by 12 as well. And again, this looks more complicated. This looks more complicated than it really is, right? Because here we can simplify this, right? Because notice here we have 12 divided by 3, right? 12 divided by 3, that's just 4. Right? Here I have a 12 divided by 4. Again, 12 divided by 4, that's just 3. right? And now this is a lot simpler, right? Because 4 times 2m, that gives you 8m, minus 12 times 2 is 24. 3 times m is 3m. And 1 times 12 is 12. And now to solve this, what we can do is we can subtract 3m from both sides. When we do that, 3m minus 3m cancels out. 8m minus 3m is 5m minus 24 is equal to 12. Here, we're subtracting by 24. The opposite of subtracting by 24 is adding 24. (24 minus 24 is 0, so those cancel out. 12 plus 24 is 36. So we have 5m is equal to 36. And now to get m by itself, we can just divide this equation by 5. And then we'll get m is equal to 36 over 5. And we can leave our answer like that because we can't really simplify our fraction anymore. So we're just going to leave our answer like that. So again, the idea when you're solving equations with fractions is you want to think about what number can I multiply my equation by to cancel out the denominators. Because once you figure that out, that makes your equation a lot easier to solve.